Napoleon Hill, ridiculously famous for his work, Think and Grow Rich, which is one of our textbooks. Napoleon Hill wrote a letter to Hanel in 1919 that, quote, "My present success and the success which has followed my work as president of the Napoleon Hill Institute is due largely to the principles laid down in the Master Key System," end quote. And that takes us to Napoleon Hill. His work, Think and Grow Rich, is included. It is a classic. You can go to any Barnes & Noble bookstore and find multiple versions of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I first read it decades ago. It's never gone out of publication. It's one of the most popular self-help, so-called self-help books ever published. But Napoleon Hill's story is just absolutely fascinating. As a young man, he was born in poverty in a two-room cabin. As a young man, he became a journalist. And during his course of work as a journalist, he was interviewing Andrew Carnegie, the richest man on earth. Carnegie invited Hill to meet and interview over 500 millionaires so that Carnegie could find and articulate a success formula that anyone could use. That's exactly what Andrew Carnegie commissioned Napoleon Hill to do, and Napoleon Hill accepted that commission and committed 20 years of his life to the study. He wrote a multi-volume set on the laws of success and then condensed that down to the single volume Think and Grow Rich. Among those Hill met and interviewed were Alexander Graham Bell, William Jennings Bryan, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Elmer Gates, John D. Rockefeller, Theodore Roosevelt, Charles Schwab, William H. Taft, Woodrow Wilson, F.W. Woolworth, and William Wrigley, Jr. I mean, these are all some stunning people. That's just a sampling of the many, many, many people that he interviewed in order to put together this philosophy of success. Hill committed over 20 years of his life to the project. Think and Grow Rich, as I mentioned, it's a condensation of a 16-volume treatise called The Law of Success. His book is the cornerstone of the philosophy of success. Hill was awarded an honorary Doctor of Literature degree by Pacific International University for his work. The next key figure, another giant, Ernest Holmes. He's the well-known founder of the International Religious Science Movement, now called Centers for Spiritual Living. He's the author of the book The Science of Mind, which is extraordinarily thick. And he launched the International Science of Mind magazine. His magazine has been in non-stop publication since 1927. Holmes left school at the age of 18. Shortly after leaving school, Holmes discovered the writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson. He once said, quote, "Reading Emerson is like drinking water to me," end quote. Not long after he discovered the work of both Christian D. Larson and Ralph Waldo Trine, two more of our writers whose works are included. Then, at the age of 25, he discovered the writings of Thomas Troward, whom I've already mentioned. And we will get into it more of an exposition of Thomas Troward shortly. The rest, as they often say, is history. He just became enormously successful, and one of the most famous writers, Holmes, is the most famous and perhaps of all the writers in what's called New Thought, sort of the term designating that school of spiritual philosophy.